find your passion. And I think of a quote that Linda Smith shared on my blog. She is the longtime artistic executive director of RDT in Salt Lake City. And she said this beautiful quote of it's not all about performing, but it's all about dance. And find the thing that you really love. So if choreography is what makes your heart sing, or the idea of running your own dance studio or teaching at a public high school, to really embrace that and to own that as it's all dance. Again, it's back to my Keith Johnson story that performing is one of the many beautiful ways to be a dancer.
Knobloch's Dance presents Dance Behind the Screen, process production and social media. Hey knowers, welcome to our podcast. We are Knobloch's Dance, a social media-based company. We strive to say no to the box. We connect interdisciplinary art, technology, and artists to re-envision the process of art making and sharing.
Hello everyone, it is Marthea, your host of today's episode of Dance Behind the Screen podcast. I am on a Skype call with Jill Homan Randall. Jill is a professional modern dancer, blogger, teaching artist, writer, arts administrator, and artistic director of Shaw Anderson Dance Center in Berkeley, California. As a performer, she has danced extensively with Nina Hofton Company, Pove Dance, and Dana Lawton. Jill has served on the board of Dancers Group and the California Dance Education Association. She has served on committees for the Alameda County Alliance for Arts Learning Leadership, Teaching Artists Organized, Service Learning Program at Cal State East Bay, Pove Dance, and now Next Dance. Jill recently joined the advisory committee of Kristen Damrow and Company, and also became chair of the Berkeley Cultural Trust in July 2018. In 2013, she received the Earps Foundation Award for Teaching Excellence from the Hamlin School. At Hamlin, Jill created and launched the online Teen Dance Film Festival. Jill co-authored the book Dance Education Essentials, 55 Objects and Ideas for New Preschool through 12th Grade Teaching Artists. On the web, Jill maintains 2 blogs and 2 websites. In 2011, she started blogging about children's books on dance, and in August 2012, her second blog, Life as a Modern Dancer, was created to make a living textbook for college students about the many ways to have a life and career in modern dance. Jill's articles about dance, performing, teaching, and arts education have appeared in journals, magazines, newspapers, and blogs, including in Dance Teaching Artist Journal and Dance Teacher Magazine, just to name a few. Jill, congratulations on all you have accomplished, and we're so honored to welcome you to our podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. That was really fun to hear you share my bio out loud and just to have a moment of reflection. Thanks for inviting me.
Yes, thanks for being here. So could you briefly describe your career for us?
Yeah, so I grew up in Pennsylvania in a relatively small town, went to the University of Utah in the modern program for my undergraduate, and then moved to Berkeley over 20 years ago in summer 1998. And I'm proud to say that I've pretty much made my entire career as a dancer, as a teacher, performer, writer, and arts administrator. So I live in Berkeley. I am the artistic director of a 60-year-old nonprofit dance center. And I'm really proud and excited to share that, yeah, that's how the last 20 years have played out. And I feel very grateful. And I love all of it, the teaching, the performing, mentoring, sharing. To me, it's all about the art of dance.
Mm. And it's so exciting to hear about all the avenues that you're able to be a part of in terms of your career as a dancer. But I kind of want to dig really deep into more so of your blogs, and then we can circle back to some other aspects of your career. So I'm curious, why did you start your blog Life as a Modern Dancer?
Yeah, I love sharing this story. So while I started it in 2012, the seed of it actually was from 1996. So I was in my senior seminar course at the University of Utah, and Keith Johnson was a guest speaker. Keith is currently a professor at Cal State Long Beach, but at that point in time, he was in the Bill T. Jones Company. And he came to speak about his career path. And it was really the first time I felt like someone opened their heart and really shared how it has played out. And he looked at us and he said, I want you to know that I am in the Bill T. Jones Company, and I also still work at Banana Republic to help pay the bills. And that was like this shattering moment of many of my views about being a professional dancer in the US. But I held that.
Can I pause you there?
Yeah.
What were your views at the time of being a professional modern dancer?
I mean, it was very much like, train as much as you can as a teen, go to a great undergrad program, audition for companies, and do that as long as you can. And then other things will come along, teaching and administration. But it was that moment of like, is this a viable, sustainable, realistic option?
You are listening to Now Vox Dance.
So I held on to this idea, and my career for the next decade was really teaching, performing, doing many things. But I held on to this idea, and then I got into this point in my life when I was now hiring young people and mentoring, and many were still holding on to this idea of like the only way or the best way to get that gig, which does happen for some, but not for all. And I held on to that Keith idea, and I was like, well, what if I start interviewing people? And I also started to slant it more towards 30-something, 40-something, 50, 60, people who might not be necessarily highlighted in some of the main dance publications, to really share, how do you pay your bills? How did you get into that company? How did you handle an injury? When did you have children? And then I started this blog as what I was hoping would be this free living textbook that then young people in a senior seminar class, like that class I took, could read and be like, oh, wow, okay, so-and-so, that's how they got into Trisha Brown. And they're also a nanny on the side, and their aspiration is to open their own dance space. And once I started asking people, and now I've published almost 170 of these profiles, people really do want to share their story and pay it forward and help dancers to figure this out.
It's exciting to hear you talk about how you came to creating this blog, because I know this is still a current problem. I feel like a lot of us artists still face to this day, and it's really, I think, a valuable resource that you've created to see how different people are negotiating these pathways of trying to make it as a modern dancer. So thank you for doing that.
Oh, thank you. And the other thing, now that, I'm going into 7 years with this blog, while yes, it was originally meant for young people, truth is that people of all ages have really enjoyed reading it and interacting with it. And so I've shifted my focus, though that was absolutely the heart of it, was to start with, okay, what would I hope a 20-year-old might read or see? Also, just the beauty of a blog is that I can just push out content so fast, where books just take so long. I mean, I do have a book in process about teaching middle school age children, and I'm still working on it 5 years later. And just the timeline of a book versus a blog, where I can, from idea to exhibition, so to speak, can be a day or a few weeks, and it just helps get info out there, fresh, current, relevant, so quickly.
Right. And especially in the current age, we have access, to the internet and through social media and the like. People can access your information almost immediately as soon as you share it.
Absolutely. I love that. I'm
curious, how do you come up with the different categories for for your blog? I know you have the artist profiles and you have different series. So how do you decide, I guess, what you want to write about?
Absolutely. So it first started with those artist profiles, which are like self interviews where I craft about a dozen questions for an artist to answer. I edit it, we publish it. So from there, just there were all of these beautiful tangents and then I started to think about, okay, well, what if I talk specifically about being a teacher or specifically a series about starting your own dance company? So these ideas became offshoots. And so then over the years, I started to challenge myself. What would be a new angle or series per year? So then I started having people who wrote books on dance write an essay about why did they write it, who should read it. And then I started doing profiles of MFA programs. And I started this aspect called One Good Quote, where I can post about a show and audience members can share feedback because it came out of a community need, specifically here in the Bay Area, where there are these fabulous shows and sometimes none of the reviewers show up. And I was like, well, what if we get a dozen people who were in the audience to share what they experienced and to capture that? So over the 7 years, I've really tried to expand it in the spirit of keeping things fresh and relevant. And that's one of my real passion areas in the field of dance around the US is really looking at what are the needs, what are the guiding questions, and how can I, in my small way, with my platform of this blog, contribute?
Don't forget to say no to the box.
That makes a lot of sense. And I'm curious, why did you choose TypePad as your blogging platform? Kind of getting into more the logistics of blogging.
Yeah. One of the keys there are two things I would say about blogs. One is, right, aesthetically, do you like the look of a blog?
Mm-hmm.
And two, I think the linkability, the shareability of once you make a post, how easy is it to cut and paste it on Facebook, to put it on Twitter, to send it via an email. And I follow a lot of blogs, dance. I do things about parenting, things about home renovations. And honestly, it was this one woman, Amanda Soule, the last name's Soule. She has this very popular blog, and she's also an author called soulmama.com. And she was the first one I saw that used TypePad, and I just really liked the look of it. And I'm not the most tech savvy, so I, wiggled my way through TypePad. You do have to pay a fee per month, but it's very affordable. And once you start that platform, I do have my other one, Dancing Words. And then I honestly use the TypePad platform for a third thing that's more like a website called MFA Dance in Review, which publishes reviews of MFA concerts. So I've loved TypePad. I decided to stick with it.
And I want to break down kind of what it takes to create a blog post. So could you walk us through your whole process for creating one blog post?
Absolutely. So let's talk about the studio practice series I just did over the last 2 months.
Great.
So this came out of a conversation with one of my theater colleagues here, Rebecca Novick, and she is in an MFA program. And she was like, I'm really curious about your studio practice versus a theater artist studio practice. And then she was like, could you share a few posts from your site that I could read? And I said to her, I was like, gosh, I don't feel like many artists had explicitly talked about studio practice. And in my kind of Jill Randall way, I was like, I'm going to rise to the challenge here. And I said, let me think about it. But I said to Rebecca, I was like, I bet I will get at least 6 artists who would love to write a short essay. So then I, spend 24 hours kind of brainstorming who could I ask? And then I cast my net to about 24 colleagues to say, yeah.
So what does casting your net look like? Is that like email, talking, messaging?
Yeah. So that's an email to it was almost all people who have written for my blog before. And, I always start with from a place of gratitude of like, thank you so much for your support of my projects. I shared the backstory about this question about studio practice. Would you be willing within the next month to write a short essay about 400 words about your studio practice and to share a photo? And I got a wonderful group of artists. And, for example, Rebecca Sten, she was super quick. She was super excited about it. She sent me something like within 24 hours.
Oh, wow.
I typically post on the weekends.
Okay.
So, I read it. I mainly do just more grammatical edits. I really believe in letting things be the length they should be. I don't edit the actual content that much, that often.
Okay. And that's only when you're curating from other people who are writing.
Absolutely. So,
okay.
And then, so for example, I posted Rebecca's, and then over the last, month or two, I've posted about 6 in the series. So, sometimes from idea to the actual post, it could be short. It could be within a week I get it out, or it could take several months. I mean, I remember when I asked Sarah Rudner, who I greatly admire, to write a post. I think that took 6 months from start to finish. And
okay.
And every dancer has a different timeline that, some people, once I invite them, they're like, okay, it's fresh on my mind. I'm going to try to get you something within a week. And then others, need a few months. In terms of things I write, usually once an idea percolates, for example, last week I did a post that lists all of the current MA and PhD dance programs in the US. So from me saying to myself, I want to post this, and me getting it out, it was probably 24 hours, because once I get rolling, I have to keep going. And I frequently write, after I put my children to bed, or in the 7 a.m. time frame before my life really starts. But so the difference between someone else writing for me, me doing the pitch, them saying yes, me supporting them, possibly going back and forth on some logistics. Yeah, that could be a week or a few weeks, but usually if I'm writing the content, I usually can get that within a week.
You are listening to Now Vox Dance.
And so then after you share it on your blog, how do you drive more people to read? Are you using, I know you share a lot of things through Facebook, so are there other strategies that you have to have people follow your blog and subscribe?
I do. And I know some people might criticize me that this is a lot of hand-holding or kind of high-touch work, but I really believe in this. So, for example, if I have an artist profile, I always send it to them and encourage them to share it with friends, family, colleagues. I will post it on Facebook. If anyone comes to mind who I should tag, whether it's their employer, their alma mater, maybe they have a show coming up at the Brooklyn Academy of Music, or they're an artist in residence at the Brooklyn Arts Exchange. So I tag things related to it. And then my final step, which I am proud that I do, is anytime that there is another colleague in the field who I really feel would enjoy reading this or sharing it with their students, or maybe, for example, when I had Joanne Woodbury write, and, the Ryrie Woodbury Company was one of the first companies in the U.S. to get NEA funding. I sent it to the head of dance of NEA at the NEA. Like I try to follow through and make these connections. And especially if someone is given a shout out that person was pivotal in the dancer's life, I try to find that person to say, hey, I wanted you to know that so-and-so wrote about you and how important you were in their early 20s. Just as a way of supporting the field and kind of closing the circle. So many of us, don't get the accolades we deserve. And so this is my small gesture towards that.
And I think that that's really admirable like for us at No Box Dance, we're all about connecting people through the digital space. And it's nice to hear the strategies that you employ to do that. It's really that personal connection, it seems, to follow up with all of these specific individuals. So I think that's definitely something that we really look up to that you're doing. That's a really cool process that you have.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I want to kind of shift gears a little bit. Could you talk about your role as artistic director of Shaw Anderson Dance Center?
Yeah. So I live in Berkeley, California, and Shaw Anderson Dance Center is in Berkeley, California. And it's a really, really special place. Frank Shaw and Victor Anderson started it in 1958. They had danced in New York City with Mae O'Donnell and then moved here. Frank still lives in Oakland, and Victor passed away about 2 years ago. Rebecca Johnson is our executive director, and I'm proud to be the artistic director. And it's a really beautiful nonprofit space in Berkeley. We are actually a big house that was converted into 4 studios.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. And over the course of a week, in a relatively modest sized space, we run 120 classes. People rehearse here. We have artists in residence. We run small performances in one of our studios. We have community partners. About 1,000 people come through the building every week. And I really love this community. It's a lot of just really caring, kind people, whether you dance recreationally or you have your own dance company. It's a really special place. So I feel very lucky to be here in a full-time capacity.
It seems like Shaw Anderson is really kind of like a hub in the Berkeley area for dance, if you will.
Absolutely. And we actually are the oldest arts organization in the city at the moment, still standing. So we're proud of that.
Well, congratulations. Could you talk to us about your role as being the artistic director? So what responsibilities do you have as artistic director?
Sure. I know for some it might sound unusual to have the role of artistic director of a school, but to me it actually makes perfect sense because, right, this is about teaching artistry. It's about the intersection of making work, being a professional artist, and dance education. So I oversee all of the programming, the who and the what, and really looking at every level, the artistry, the craft, really supporting our wonderful 60 teaching artists to craft their lessons, to be the best teachers they can be, to give them space and time to build their own teaching practice. So to me, as the artistic director, my goal is to bring that lens to everything, whether it's marketing work, whether it's a conversation in public, whether it's talking to a parent, that bringing the love of dance, the how else to say it, the belief in the power of dance through and through. So to me, it's all important, whether we're talking about children, adults, ticket sales, it's all important to me.
And it seems like it's directly correlated to what we talked about in Why You Started Life as a Modern Dancer, creating this living textbook, if you will. It seems almost like this is your way of practicing that in that role as artistic director.
Absolutely. Thank you for saying that. I do feel like there's a beautiful parallel, but also intersections that's really kind of how I'm moving through the world and trying to be a part and a change and supporter in the dance field.
Have you seen a shift in marketing for Shaw Anderson Dance Center because of social media?
Absolutely. I mean, I feel like this has been the biggest change since I finished college in 1997, which was like just the start of some of these things. And I remember John Scoville, one of my professors, saying, like, what do you predict? What's going to happen with all this technology? And I was one of those people of like, this is ridiculous. This is not going to change am.
Really?
Absolutely.
That's hard to believe when you have three
Yeah.
blogs now and everything.
I know I should actually remind John of that story. But I mean, when you look at Shaw Anderson and just, I mean, social media for the dance field, I actually think is a true gift when we are so typically strapped for money, for publicity, for marketing, whether it's actual materials or people to help do PR, outreach, marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And there are so many amazing ways with social media, also with YouTube, to really highlight, elevate, connect in the field. And I love it. And I see it here, whether we post something simple of like a teacher is sick and there's a sub this evening, and that connects to 300 people all of a sudden this afternoon on Facebook, or a beautiful image from a class that's on Instagram. I love it. And it just keeps spreading dance, and especially modern dance. I think it's been a really positive thing.
Do you think that more people are interested in, for example, signing up for classes because they follow the dance center on Instagram or Facebook or something like that? Are you able to track exactly like who follows you and then who might come up and sign up for a class, for instance?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, we have about 2,000 followers, and obviously I do like tracking how many people click on a post or read a post. It's not so much the Shaw Anderson Facebook page or Instagram page. To be honest, I think the power is more in someone sharing that. And it's the 6 degrees of separation. So whether the organization posts it and my employee reposts it and her neighbor reads it, and then that inspires her to come to a class or a show. So I'm actually much more into use the platforms, but maximize the linking, the cross posting, the tagging.
So really about the spreading of information.
Absolutely.
Don't forget to say no to the box.
You've had such an extensive career under the umbrella, as you define it, as a professional modern dancer. And could you share 3 tips for our audience, those that might be pursuing a career as a professional modern dancer?
Absolutely. So I would love to share many things. So off the cuff from my heart, what would I say are 3 things? One is definitely consider the role of teaching in your life, and learn to become a teacher. And whether you had formal training or not, can you intern? Can you find a mentor? Can you become an assistant? Because the reality is the majority of modern dancers, whether you're in the Bill T. Jones company or a freelance artist, will be teaching in some capacity. So to proactively think about it, reflect on it, and build your skills as a teaching artist. So that's one of my big passion areas. 2 is to be kind and to be curious, to talk to people after you take a technique class together, find out who people are, and to come into each situation with a spirit of curiosity and a spirit of respect will go a long way of just simply starting to network. I would say those are 2 important pieces. And then 3, really, these are so much I want to share. Yeah, teaching, kindness, respect, and find your passion. And, I think of a quote that Linda Smith shared on my blog. She is the longtime artistic executive director of RDT in Salt Lake City. And she said this beautiful quote of like, it's not all about performing, but it's all about dance. And find the thing that you really love. So if choreography is what makes your heart sing, or the idea of running at your own dance studio or teaching at a public high school, to really embrace that and to own that as it's all dance. Again, it's back to my Keith Johnson story that performing is one of the many beautiful ways to be a dancer.
That's so lovely and very valuable advice. What do you think the emerging practice or the influence of social media is for dance?
Yeah. I think there will be a whole other wave of using social media actually as like art making. I think there will be even more of that, of pieces that are shared only online, or people putting out choreographic prompts via Instagram, or writing reviews via Instagram. Like, I feel like instead of just sharing just basic content, I think the next wave will be actually using the format for online discussion, a mini conference. I think that's the next wave.
And I think we would definitely agree with you in that. That's part of the reason why we started a digital dance company, if you will. And I think there's so many exciting opportunities. And I wonder too myself if social media and dance is almost going to become a new form of dance, if you will. Like, we have alternative formats like sight dance or dance film. I'm wondering if social media dance is going to be a new form.
I love it. I love it. I love that idea. I think that's a brilliant idea. Super
we'll fun. Have to touch base in the future and see what happens.
Cool. I love it.
So as we wrap up, we have what's called our Flash 4 portion, where we ask all our guests to answer 4 questions in a flash.
Flash 4.
Are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay, here we go. 1, if you had to recommend a resource to our audience, what would it be?
And I only get to recommend one?
Yeah. We might give you a few extra.
Okay. I would actually, I was thinking about a book I wanted to give a shout out to. It's called A Life in Dance, and it's by Rebecca Sten and Fram Kermsher. And it's a really beautiful edited book of essays. And in my 40s, I enjoy reading it. But also, I think for someone in college or recently out of college, all of these dancers, again, talking about careers in dance. And you can buy it online.
Great. What was the first dance you saw?
I think it was Peter and the Wolf. And I don't know if it was actually a professional company or it was like the teen company of the school I was at. But I was in love with dance from a very young age. But I have this very distinct memory of seeing that in Pennsylvania.
No. Do you think social media has a positive influence on the dance world? Yes or no?
I would say a strong yes.
Great. What is your favorite social media platform?
I would still say Facebook.
Facebook. Wonderful. So thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge and advice and tips and tricks. And I'm curious if there's any other resources that you might want to share with our audience.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I am always on the lookout for resources, and I really think podcasts like this are really wonderful. I think there's a ton of potential and growth in dance for podcasts. I was thinking about Jay Bowie's podcast, The Dance Union, and Andrea Mulbauer's Dance Like Everybody's Watching. So yeah, I just wanted to give a little shout out to podcasts.
Great. And we can definitely link all of those in the show notes, as well as the link to the book as well, for those of you who are listening. So as we conclude, could you share with our listeners your social media handles, your website, your blogs? How can they stay connected with you?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So, Life as a Modern Dancer can be reached online at blog.lifeasamoderndancer.com. You can also search on Facebook at Life as a Modern Dancer. And if it's okay, I think we'll just start there.
Okay, great. And we'll link those again in the show notes so everyone can immediately stay connected and subscribe to your blogs. And I just want to say thank you again so much for your time, Jill. This has been really fruitful. I feel like it's chocked full of knowledge, and we look forward to our audience being able to follow up and connect with you and to read all of these wonderful resources you've shared.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for taking your time to tune in to Dance Behind the Screen, a bi-monthly interview series where we go behind the screen to question process, product, and social media. Be sure to follow us on social media at KNOW Box Dance. See you next time, and don't forget to say no to the box.